anything out. This conversation that we're going to have with Aspen Long, she has been a sexologist, well, she is an intimacy coach, a sexologist, and I don't want to get this word wrong, I'm going to have her to say it for you guys again, but also somatica, and she has been certified in that, and we're going to have a conversation where you guys are going to be open to ask her any questions that you feel, and when I say ask them, feel free to ask what I'm not being pleased correctly. How would I explain that to my significant other, and etc. She'll explain a little bit about what she's gonna do, tell you about herself, and then we're just gonna have an open conversation, and we'll go from there. Okay? So welcome to the stage, Aspen Long.
How's it going? Thank you for sticking around. I am so happy, and this is actually pretty cool because it's kind of like your own personal session right now. So that's actually kind of exciting, and I love it. My name is Aspen. I'm a certified somatica practitioner and sexologist and intimacy coach here in Atlanta, and then of course online. And I'm just super excited to be here. Love Fest, I'm all about that. I love love. And one of my main goals in life is to try to stay heart-centered and in my body as much as possible. You know, things are hectic, and I have to practice my own work regularly, you know, in my relationship with my family, my son, all of that, you know, and try to stay connected to myself, my sexuality, and my heart. So I just love what Latifah's doing with Love Fest. I think it's amazing. So, yeah, so that's a little about me. That's kind of what I'm about. I'm a free spirit. I like to stay connected to my feelings. Sex is very important to me. It's a very important part of my life. I prioritize it a lot, and for me, that's because I enjoy it. I think it's important. It's free. It's one of the best free pleasures out there. I'm always learning more about it, which I also love to learn. So yeah, I prioritize it a lot, and I think that everybody can prioritize intimacy. It just takes a little bit of, sometimes it takes some healing, some work, a perspective change, and some time put into it. So yeah, I prioritize sex a lot. It's my passion. It's also my job to teach about sex and intimacy and connection. So that's what I do. And I also write music and sing and perform. And it's great. I moved to Atlanta it's almost been a year. I can't believe that. It's almost been a year since I've been here. Anyways, I'm getting set up, established, meeting people, making connections, building community. Super exciting. Yeah, so I went to school at the Somatica Institute. It is specifically an institute for sex coaches to learn and become certified in intimacy coaching and sex coaching. And it was such a life-changing experience. So I learned so much from the Somatica Institute. I love those guys. And then of course I've done a lot of my own education, my own personal research. That's the main education that I've had. And that's taught me so much, and it's ebbed and flowed and changed over the years. So yeah, I would love to hear questions from you all and see if we can kind of start a conversation in that way. And also, you ladies, I mean, yeah, let's have a ball, let's have some fun. So yeah, who wants to start with a question or even just a topic? Even if it's not a question, it could just be a topic to discuss. You got one?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, or can you talk a little bit about intimacy and sex? Like it's two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people think, I'm not gonna say men, because women can miss it too, but they skip the intimacy part and they just do the sex piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then when their relationships kind of fail, they don't understand why. Because the sex life may be great, but you're failing in the intimacy part. Can you speak about the differences?
Yes, absolutely. That's such a good topic, actually, because I think that kind of intimacy is a big word, right? It means a lot of different things, and it can mean different things to different people, right? Intimacy can be sex, you know, and making love, or it could just be, you know, whatever. It could be rough sex even. That could be intimate. Or intimacy can also be that deeper connection, or those kind of connections that aren't sexual at all. They are just those moments where you are spending quality time, maybe having a deep conversation, maybe physical intimacy that doesn't lead to sex or doesn't have an expectation for sex behind it. desire different levels of intimacy. And I guess the most important thing for me is that there's no right or wrong way of doing intimacy or desiring intimacy. But there is compromise, right? So if your partner would like more cuddling, talking, looking into each other's eyes, activities, maybe support around the house, maybe other things that are intimate, because so many things can be gestures of intimacy. Maybe your partner wants that, and you don't prioritize those things as much. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to crave that as much or want that as much, but you do need to hear your partner and figure out what you need to do to compromise on your needs. So yeah, intimacy, I definitely think there is a difference between sex and intimacy, and also it can be the same, right? Like it kind of both makes sense to me. But intimacy can mean a lot of emotional connection, and I think everybody needs that on some level. Talking, and I guess what I would say is it starts with a conversation, right? Because somebody can't read your mind. And we have to be vulnerable and say the scary things. It's so scary to communicate what we need sometimes. I mean, saying to a partner maybe that doesn't seem like they have those same priorities, hey, I'm feeling like I'm disconnected from you, and I'm feeling unloved or not, like I'm missing something in order to be wanting sex. I need something else from you to be in the mood to have sex. That can be scary, right? Because you don't know the reaction you're gonna get. You don't know if that's important to that person, you know? And I think that for me, what I've learned over the years is that the way that you communicate is such a big deal, right? Because when I feel hurt or like something has been lacking in my life, I can tend to communicate in a way kind of like, you don't give me any cuddles and we don't spend any quality time together and all you care about is just having sex, right? I don't necessarily say that because I want to have a lot of sex. But that might not be my same priority, right? But if I get hurt and I decide, that I'm gonna bring it up and I communicate like that, what could happen?
Rejection.
Rejection, so scary. That's the word. Oh, we don't want that. Mad, right? Maybe the other person might respond defensively, right? They feel attacked. They're like, what? I don't do that, you just whatever. You can start a fight. All right, what if I start the conversation like, and this is where somatica and the body comes in. Somatic means body. So we're in our heads a lot, right? And for me, as soon as I go to how would I communicate in a more vulnerable, authentic way that could be a more positive outcome for communication, I immediately want to touch base with my body. Because I've learned how to do that. So I want to slow down, take a breath, feel my body before I communicate. And the only reason I know to do that with myself is because I've been practicing that for a while. Because it's like a muscle you have to learn. Instead of using the brain, which can be not as smart as you'd think a brain would be, try to connect with the body and be a little bit more in tune with that part. So if I want to communicate in a way that might be more productive, I might say something like, first of all, I'm feeling really afraid of being rejected, and it's hard for me to communicate this. Immediately, you're gonna get compassion. Your partner's listening now, right? And I have been feeling lately like I'm craving more intimacy, emotional intimacy. And I'm just curious if there's a way that we can practice that. And I don't think you don't even have to say that. I workshop this stuff with my clients all the time. Like we'll be like, actually, no, don't say that. Yeah. That's like too much explaining, right?
Yeah, right.
So back to the feelings. I'm feeling like I'm craving more emotional intimacy, and I'm wondering if there's a way that we can practice that or figure out what that looks like for me. I don't even know what that looks like, but I want to learn with you, and I hope that you're open to exploring that with me. And then that hopefully would bring in a partner openness and curiosity and compassion,
Yeah, that's it.
something like that. And then you also have a responsibility to figure out what that looks like for you. So with my clients, because it's a somatic certification. I'm not a sex therapist. We have more parameters, so sometimes there's cuddling in the sessions where we can actually explore those needs in real time, like a relationship lab. For instance, I was with someone the other night, and they're having a lot of anxiety about seeing their partner for this anniversary weekend. And their partner has sensitivity when it comes to cuddling, like sensory things. So we were workshopping kind of how to initiate this cuddling. And it was just really fun to workshop it, you know? And then also when we were doing the cuddling, I was like, how does it feel for you? What is it gonna feel good for you? Does it feel good for you to be kind of curled up? Do you like your hair touched? Do you want no motion, or do you want little, touches on the arm? And sometimes we've never even thought about that before. Like, wait, what do I want? I don't know. Good question. In cuddling and also in the bedroom, right? So kind of exploring that with your partner, giving that space for communication for your needs, and then getting to kind of look at it as an experiment. Like, okay, we're just exploring together, no pressure, to learn what that looks like. Maybe it's not even physical touch, maybe it's something else, What do you think? Is there an idea that you have about it?
No, because I like physical touch, so I don't know what you could do outside of that, but maybe communication, just sitting there talking in a more intimate, facing each other, eye contact. Maybe that person has some sensory issues. But like you said, maybe start, so maybe it's a leg across the lap, something really, not really doing too much.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good idea.
That was good.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, maybe talking, communicating, cuddling.
Sitting
So,
close. Yeah, just
Sitting close. Yeah, I love all that, and I think that was such a good question, so thank you. Yeah,
Great answer.
thanks. All right, anybody have anything else you'd like to discuss?
Don't be shy.
It's okay to be shy.
I've been trying to think of a question.
Don't make me ask all of them, because I will.
I love that.
I'm empty right now.
You're just listening, taking in. Are you guys a couple?
Yes.
Yeah, we're a couple.
Okay,
That's
so
awesome.
this is good. So like, how long y'all been dating? Look at me.
No, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
It's been a little over 3 years now.
Aww. That's so sweet. I love that. How do you feel your intimacy is?
I feel like it's okay. We have good intimacy when we can be intimate. Right now, we're not in spaces where we can be very intimate all the time. We're still working about, getting places to live. The economy's crazy, so
Totally.
So
Yeah.
not much time to experiment with that.
Yeah. That's always hard. And what would you say?
For me, I feel like all of that stuff is very important to me. So I'm always thinking how can I do the best I can to make her feel comfortable? And communicating that stuff while it's happening is pretty important to me. It's like, are you okay? Do you like this? Do you not like this? How do you feel right now before I do this?
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
Yeah.
She says no. No means no.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I love that. That's preach it. No means no. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really do appreciate it.
I do have one thing.
Okay.
How do you deal with a situation like where maybe one person might be more sexually active and the other person isn't as sexually active? How do you deal with that situation? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that I love you any less, but my love language is not having sex. My love language is, acts of service, right? But this person's love language might be sex, and so he might be giving that to me, thinking like, yeah, I'm giving you all of the love, when that is not my love language,
Right.
So how do you communicate that balance?
That is the biggest thing I work with people on. I will tell you right now. Number one thing that people come to sex coaches for is probably difference in libidos or different love languages, different scales of desire for sex, right? And that's a tricky one because it is not a simple answer because it depends on how things have been handled up until the point when you may be getting help or getting communication. skills, because if there are patterns that have already formed, it can be tricky, right? There can be patterns of rejection or someone feeling burdened by a person's desires, and so that all kind of goes into it. But I guess the main thing is, again, communication. First of all, that person needs to know, hey, this is not my love language, and I am not really feeling like I want sex as often as you. Now that's hard. I know we're afraid of hurting our partners. We don't want to hurt the person that we love, you know? But that communication does need to happen at some point, and it's much better if it can happen before resentments build, right? Because once the resentments build, where you're just having sex when you don't really feel like having sex or whatnot, then you might come off kind of like harsh, you know? That boundary could come off kind of harsh, like, hey, I don't want to do this or whatever. But if it's communicated a little bit ahead of time, as you start feeling the feelings, then usually, again, you can come up with a compromise. I'm a big fan of sex dates. I think that sex dates are really fun and important. For some people, spontaneity might be like the most important part of a turn on. So if spontaneity is like your jam, then sex dates might not be the best for you. For me, I really like sex dates because then there is less pressure. In some ways, it relieves the pressure, right? Both people know it's gonna happen. So for the person who doesn't wanna have sex all the time, they can feel not like it could be something that was sprung on them at any moment. Like, I want sex right now, I want sex right now. You know, you could communicate with your partner and say, hey, we're gonna do this like once a week. You know, this is the time that we're reserving for intimacy, where we can explore and have all the sex and just do all the things, have my type of intimacy and your type of intimacy. And that way it can take some of the pressure off of you so that you're not feeling, you know, pursued all the time. And it can also give the partner who needs more sex more security, knowing that they're for sure gonna get it. And they're not gonna be like, am I gonna get it if I put myself out there, or am I gonna get rejected this time? So for me, that's been really good and helpful. And then the other piece, which leads into something that's super important to me, is sometimes the person who doesn't really want sex as much might not be having this kind of sex that they want, right? They might not be being fulfilled in their sexual life. So beginning to explore your own sexuality and turning inward and learning your own personal sexual practice, and also starting to explore your fantasies and desires, and learning how to get tons of pleasure from sex can really increase your desire to have sex. So there is a way to kind of meet in the middle there. Because who wants to have sex very often if you're not really, it's not stimulating you that much. It's not stimulating your brain, or you're not having an orgasm. Women's orgasms are something that are somewhat elusive, and we don't talk about it enough. There's not a lot of education out there. And I'm a huge pioneer for that. Like, okay, let's figure out your specific recipe, right? Because not one thing is the same for all of us. It takes different kinds of pleasure, stimulation, levels of foreplay, maybe scenarios, maybe a toy, so many different things that you can explore to be having the kind of sex that you want. And then yeah, that is a huge topic, and sometimes it takes some unweeding if there's already been a unbalance in desire, and there's been resentments or burdens that have been formed. So
How long would that process would take to get to a balance, or two people are comfortable with the unbalance of the sex? Like, how long does that take to get to a point where the person's like, okay, I feel comfortable with these sex dates, I know that this is what they are, and the other person is okay, because is once a week enough time to have sex? Like, is that enough?
not for everyone.
No, I was gonna say,
Definitely not.
like, getting to the root of it, like, is it a libido problem? Because then that's another thing, because it's like, if that's an issue, then you have to work on that piece of it.
Yeah, like I said, this is a huge topic.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to figure out exactly what is going on for each specific couple when it comes to that. Like you said, is it a libido thing?
Yeah. If it's
No,
that-
once a week is not probably enough for the person that wants more sex,
Yeah.
right? But it could be feeling more satisfying if it's at least something that is known. Because sometimes somebody who wants a lot of sex also might have anxiety, like have anxious attachment, like need more reassurance, more validation through the week to feel sexy or wanted, right? I'm that person, so I know. It's like that's my connection time. Like this is what I want to do. This is my favorite thing. So that person might want to feel that connection more often, and for an anxiously attached person, knowing that it's going to happen actually feels like really secure and like, yay, I can look forward to this. So it can happen. And then, so that's like the more set aside time, right? A little longer of a time. And then like quickies can happen during the week. Or there can be, their own sexual practice, masturbation and stuff. So there is a way to compromise that it works for both people. But like you said, there's so many different things, and I could not possibly give you a date or time on how long that would take. It depends on how early you kind of start addressing these differences. It really depends on that. As soon as you notice that there's some imbalance in desire or libido and stuff, it's good to start working with it and addressing it so those resentments don't build.
Or if it's a issue where resentment sets in, because like you just said, your love language, not yours personally, I'm not aiming to point at you, but whoever love language is, if that person's love language is acts of service or gifts or whatever it may be, and the person that loves sex doesn't do any of that, then that'll make you not, because when I was married, this was my issue. It'll make you not even desire to have sex. It's like, I'm coming home, I'm getting the kids ready, I'm cooking, I'm doing all these things. I have an attitude because you could have done some of this for me before I got here. Yep. But then now when it's time to go to bed, you want to have sex. And I'm still feeling away from earlier, how you could have helped me.
Yep.
So that was something I had to communicate. That I feel drained, and then by the time you go to bed, if you want to, I'm just kind of feeling like you're not helping me.
Yep.
In the
So
areas that you would have helped me, I probably would have desired to have it. I probably would have wanted to have it, been excited to have it. So it could be because that person is not getting what they need. Because sex is just an act, not necessarily a love language per se.
Right.
But if you have a love language and that person's not feeling it, it doesn't make you want to desire you sexually. If that makes sense. And then that person may go, you know what? Okay, what do you need me to do? Because if they knew that was the issue, they'll be like sweeping, cleaning up,
Exactly.
doing all the things.
It's all about communication.
Or they'll do it when they know, like, okay, this is the sex date coming up.
Right.
Maybe don't do the sex date. You gotta figure out what works.
Yeah.
Maybe what works for that person. Maybe having a conversation saying, this is what's happening, and this is why I think I don't desire it as much. Like I'm gonna figure out if it's a libido issue first, because if that's an issue, then that's something you have to work on differently.
No, libido is tied to that as well.
I mean, it's tied to it.
No, so much.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, okay,
That's
so
true.
sometimes people have actual foreplay that's not even sex, like sex related, like doing the dishes for some people. Someone doing the dishes for them is a form of foreplay.
Yes.
It's all part of your hottest scenario, right? And then your core desires, like what do you want to feel during sex? Do you want to feel romantic? Do you want to feel passionate? Do you want to feel dominated? All these things go into sex and does affect your libido, because if you're not getting your needs met, needs being during sex and outside of sex, the support you need, it's 100% tied to libido, because if you're not getting your needs met, your libido,
So there,
or
that's
if you don't feel safe, if you don't feel safe to communicate your needs,
that desire goes
yeah,
away.
absolutely. And also though, sometimes women do struggle with libido, especially if you're parenting, especially if you're working, parenting, cleaning, all these things. This is also a feminist issue where, we're doing all this work and we are having pieces taken up from us, from little creatures, and then the work, and then the house, and all this stuff, and then we're expected to have energy to give more, right? Now, that can be balanced out, and it can be acknowledged by communication and standing up for yourself, and just, communicating vulnerably, not in an attacking, but like, this is how I feel, and I need this from you. Please do this. People cannot read your mind. Assuming your partner's gonna know what you need, it's not gonna happen. People don't just know naturally what you need, because people have different needs. But you're so right about that, and it's so important to have that support and feel like you're going into sex in a way where you're also going to be getting something from it. Because if you're just having something taken from you, it's not going to feel satisfying. It's not going to feel like something you want to do without feeling resentful, right? But if you're going into it feeling supported, heard, loved, connected, and also knowing you're going to get pleasure when you have sex, then you're getting your cup filled.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you're gonna get your cup filled. You're gonna have have more energy, you're gonna feel renewed to go do all the work, take the kids, do all the things if you're getting what you need from the sexual experience. So it's so important to have your needs met, sexually and emotionally, just like you were talking about. So that's such a good topic. And like I said, it's just such a big topic, understanding what's happened and, all the different, nuances of each couple, that it wouldn't be enough time to talk about that topic in a whole. But it's the number one thing people struggle with. Yeah. And it goes both ways. It's not always men wanting more sex and women wanting less sex, although that is probably 75%. It's usually like that. And I think that is a, feminists living in a patriotic society, systemic issues topic as well.
Okay, so what is the average amount of sex you think we should be having a week?
I don't know if that is I don't think that exists. I think it's too personal.
What's
to
a
say.
fair? What's a fair?
Okay, what's
A fair amount? I think fair is once a week. I think that if you're having a weekly check-in, that's fair. I mean, twice a week would be better, maybe more. I mean, depending on your circumstances. I don't have circumstances that allow me to have the kind of sex I want to have more than once a week. I can do, we can have sex, more often during a week if it's just sort of shorter or whatever, but the kind of sex I need takes more time. So that is once a week. That's the time we have. And that's just that. And I think that's perfectly fine,
So
for
you
now.
basically saying figure out what works for you and your partner, basically,
What works-
based on your life.
What works for you and your partner? It is so personal when it comes to that. And you all were just talking about how you have these circumstances that prevent you from having as much time for intimacy as you'd like. And that's tricky, and that does take a toll, so I hear that. And, I feel it too. I have similar circumstances and it's really hard to navigate.
So if your partner, like to Latifah's point, is just like Energizer Bunny, want it all the time, so they can have sex every day.
Mhm.
And you're kind of like, what would be, honestly, like, maybe 3, what's the compromise? Would you say 3 times a week if somebody can do it every day? You know what I'm saying?
I think that it depends. If it feels okay for you in your body and in your soul to do it 3 times a week,
I love how you just said that.
then that's fine,
My
But
body, my soul ain't feeling it today, so that's gonna
yeah,
be
if your body and soul, there's a difference. So there's boundaries.
my body and soul ain't
Yeah,
feeling it.
if you're not feeling it, then that is you are allowed to say, no, I'm not feeling it.
But that person's gonna get mad.
Well,
Not when you say my body and soul, like that just sounds so deep.
right?
Like,
So deep,
Like,
so deep.
When, the way you said it was funny because you're not just saying I don't want to and like rejecting them. You're actually saying my body and my soul doesn't feel it right now. And then
Yeah.
if they get mad at you, then do you care about my feelings?
Right.
As much as I care about
Right.
yours?
But then
I don't think that's fair to
And that's not
partners
fair.
getting mad at you.
Because you're not saying like I don't want you.
Right.
You're just telling them
You're
how your
talking-
body
and that's
is
that
feeling.
communication style of taking accountability for your own feelings.
Yeah.
And communicating in that vulnerable way. It's a lot harder for people to get defensive if you're communicating like, I don't have the capacity. Like, I don't have the capacity to
Now,
give sex
I'll
right now.
say this. I personally think if you're constantly shooting them down, then yes. Because they may feel like, am I not enough for you? Like, do you not love me and want me and desire me like I want and desire you? So maybe the communication could be telling them why. And I think when people understand your why, to back to what you said earlier, they'll have compassion for you.
Yes.
So if you say something like, I just think something's wrong with my libido, I'm not feeling, I'm tired, my body feels off, I don't know what's wrong, it's not you, I think it's me. And I think that's where the grace comes in, they shouldn't get mad at you. And then that's when you get to have a conversation with the person saying, was there anything more I could do? Because if your partner loves
Yes.
you, then they want to know, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to speak to that in that moment, and I think I'm drained, or I think this. And if they knew that, I think they'll
Then they
respond
can
differently.
provide more support. Mhm.
Versus just
And
saying,
then
I don't-
sometimes people
I
do
don't
get
like
mad.
it.
You also have
Yeah.
to give room for humanity because sometimes partners are just gonna get mad or hurt and it's like, I did good communication, you still got hurt or mad, and that does happen because we're humans and we do get hurt and rejected. And then you just have to talk it out, And if there's deep patterns where the partner is getting mad often or you're really not able to communicate without that blowing up, and those things persist, it is good to see somebody. Because a neutral party can teach your partner in a different way than you can teach your partner. Because they are gonna hear from you based on all of your history. right? All of their history and your history is flooding through as you're communicating. But with a neutral party, it's more blank, and they can respond more neutrally, or like hear it better. So, you know, hopefully if you are able to communicate vulnerably, your partner is gonna hear you and be able to respond better. And so yeah, 3 times a week, is it fair? Sure, if you feel okay about it, right? But if you're feeling like, this is really a stretch for me, and it really feels like it might be doing harm, then no, listen to your body and your soul.
Your soul is.
Yeah. I wanted to speak to what you said earlier about communicating during sex and checking in and asking if it feels okay and if you like that, and no means no. I think that's awesome. And I just wanted to go back to that a little bit.
Question.
Yeah, please.
So, how would you say you go about making somebody that's not so dominant a little more dominant? Because like, I feel like maybe it's like a thing down to personality, and then is the personality really malleable? Like, how malleable can personality be to something like that?
That's such a good question. That is tricky. Personality or also just core desires, which core desires are kind of the way that you want to feel during a sexual experience. And those ways you want to feel are the things that get you the most turned on, right? So for somebody whose core desire or really deepest arousal button is to be submissive, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a, like, if that feeling of being powerless, out of control, and somebody else has them and is in charge, it is going to be a little bit tricky to switch into a more dominant place. However, it's totally possible. It is possible. I think that the best way to do that is to take turns. So, for instance, during a sexual experience, possibly, for me, this touches on what you said earlier, I like to communicate beforehand or after. I don't actually like to communicate a lot during sex. Of course, some is good. It's always good to have check-ins for consent and stuff like that. But for me, I like to communicate my boundaries beforehand so that they're already out there, and have that consent conversation with my partner already out of the way, so that they know if there's any like hard no's or like, you know, no way, don't do this. Like, I don't like my hair pulled. You know, I don't have very much, so don't pull it. But that's pretty much one of my only things that I really just don't like. And so a partner can know that and not have to check in the middle, right? Because sometimes words and communication gets in the middle of my flow. It can kind of mess up my flow. And that's just a personal thing for me. It's not that way for everyone. So you can also talk about that with your partner. Say, hey, do you like check-ins during the whole sexual experience, or do you like to talk beforehand? And ask them about their consent style. You know, what is your consent style for communication? So that is something to see about.
I do have a more funny question about the talking during.
Yeah.
Could be a turn on. Have you ever, maybe it's too personal, but have you ever
No,
had
nothing's too personal.
somebody, you say something, and then it's just, from them?
Yes, that's like my worst nightmare, right? That is my worst nightmare. Like, I try to say, and it's happened before, like I try to say something like sexy, and I'm like, yeah, I like that, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I'm not reading it. Like, it already took all my strength to like squeak it out in the first place. Yes, that's so funny. That's happened to you too?
Yeah, I think I've done it too, maybe one of the class. I'm like, hey, I can't hear it.
It's so funny.
But
Yeah.
it's funny, but I think like it's important to have like those times where you can like laugh about it. Even during it shouldn't be a tense moment
Absolutely.
while like,
Oh, I crack up. I sometimes crack up during sex because there are so many funny and awkward moments. It doesn't have to be so serious.
yeah.
I love that. I love that just kind of cracking up because it is funny. Like, that's funny. That's a good
And
question.
that's a good way of chemistry too, right? If you're able to enjoy those moments. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It means that you're kind of relaxed, right? Which sometimes it can be hard to be relaxed. Sometimes we're so in our head and we're so worried about, am I turning this person on? That's another huge thing. you're worried about turning your partner on, that's great. I'm so glad that you care about your partner's pleasure. Like, that's positive, right? But you can go too far with it to where you're so worried about somebody else's pleasure that you're not even in yours anymore. And what is the hottest thing when you're having sex? For me, one of the hottest things when I'm having sex is my partner being really turned on, right? Like, they're really turned on, they're in their pleasure, they're like, yeah, this is like so hot. And so by them getting in their pleasure and focusing on what turns them on, that turns me on. And then and vice versa, I'm focused on my pleasure and I'm, honed in on my body and what feels good, or maybe I have like a fantasy running in my head, and I'm in the moment with them, and I take a pause if I need to, and I can reset if that needs to happen. And then we're both in our pleasure, but we're also connected with each other. So that can be pretty hard. What was your question? You had a different question. You had a question.
How to handle if someone says something, say something and they don't respond back.
No, that one, and there was one before that.
That was, yes, the dominant.
Oh yes, the dominance. I was like, there was an exciting question. So you can take turns with that. So somebody can kind of practice getting into their dominant side by tuning into their body, potentially watching like dominatrix style videos, or maybe reading erotica, something to kind of help them connect with the storyline is a really good assignment for the person to do. And then I would just recommend taking turns. So on the day that you're gonna be exploring being more dominant, it'll be all about that, right? So that time it'll be all about your pleasure. And it'll be like, okay, I'm gonna be in this role and I'm just gonna play with my dominant side. And then another time, it'll be like taking turns. Like, okay, today I'm gonna be submissive. And I'm gonna just be relaxed and be in my submissive zone, and it's all about me, and I'm a pampered princess. Or whatever it looks like for you to be submissive. There's a lot of different range when it comes to dominance and submissiveness. The other thing you can do is figure out, I don't know which one of you might be exploring that, but one of the things you can do is figure out some words that speak to your core desire around being dominated. Like the phrasing that goes with it. And your partner can practice the phrasing and try to feel it, and get into their authentic self when they say the phrasing. Do you have any examples of phrasing you already know works for you? That makes you feel like you're being dominated? Let's see if I have a good example. I do like take charge, sexual encounter. For me, I like the kind of dominance that's kind of like dirty praising. So I like to be told, I'm such a good little slut. Like, oh, you're such a good whore. You're such a whore for me. Like an ownership element. I like an ownership element. I like a good dirty praising. Like, I'm doing such a good job being a dirty whore. So I really like stuff like that. So different phrasing around that. Or like you, just trying to think of another one.
What if it's more guided? Like, I like to be guided.
You like to be guided? Oh yeah, that's
I mean,
a good one.
I'm cool with talking to like a little bit, like just little subtle things that you can say during sex. But I like, if you're gonna be taking control, kind of guide me, like
You take the body and move it. Absolutely. No, I love that too. I think that's super fun. And that's another thing to experiment with. If you're not naturally dominant, of course that's gonna feel a little bit different and it's gonna take some practice, but it's totally doable. Try just to, like I said, do your own research. Do research on how to be more dominant. I work with people on this a lot, and I will do exercises with them like up against the wall where they will practice approaching me in a dominant, passionate way, right? And just kind of pushing me against the wall and stuff, and having like a intense stare, or grabbing my arms and stuff like that. And that is a good way to practice what it feels like in your body, kind of notice like where you can find your power center, and then bring it forward to your partner. So it just takes some practice, but it's totally doable. So practice with learn your partner's phrasing, like what they like to hear, practice how it feels in your body, and do some research on how to be dominant.
Do you think it's important to have a safe word during sex?
It depends on what you're doing. Yeah, depends on the person. If you have fear around that, or you have some serious boundaries that you know if they're crossed, it could be really traumatizing for you. Or if you're doing like a lot of pain play, you know, if you're doing like whips and belts and things like that, it could be good to have a safe word for sure, definitely. And actually, there's different levels. So if you are playing with pain, there's different levels. So there's green, yellow, and red. So that's a good way to gauge, you know, where something is for you on your level of pain, pleasure, threshold. So if something's like green, it's like, yeah, it's going great. And if something's yellow, it's like, okay, that's getting a little bit intense, but I can still handle it. And then red is a hard stop. Yeah. But again, for some people, it might not be necessary if they have a very good understanding of their boundaries, and they know these are my boundaries, and I'm aware of them, and I've communicated them ahead of time. You know, you're probably fine. Yeah. Depends.
But so you know, porn is it's just lies. It's fabricated. A lot of it is just not real. And there's no real context to what happens before or after the video.
Right.
And so I be seeing some odd stuff sometimes where they're switching poles. Is that safe?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good, no, totally. That's a fair question.
If they're cleaned out, is that safe?
No, that is a risk of getting a UTI, 100%. I mean, if you've douched really well and it's like a squeaky clean porn booty hole, maybe you'd be safe. Like there's a good chance you wouldn't get a UTI, but it's always still going to be a risk because of, you know the nature of it. You know, from the ass to the vagina, you know, a little bit of poo particles could get in there and the urethra and boom, UTI. That's so uncomfortable. Now, I will say, if you want to do something like that, that's freaky and fun. I like to go. We'll just incorporate 3 holes because one of them, you know, helps with the other. So I'm just gonna be blunt with you all. If you can go from, you know, the ass to the mouth, back to the vagina, that helps.
Wait, come.
Yeah, that's right. I said it.
You know what? I'm gonna say right now.
Say
I
it.
hate who missed this because this is so good.
Oh my
But say that last part again.
All right. So since there's risk of a UTI from going from the ass to the vagina,
Okay.
I'll have him go from the ass to the mouth to clean it off, back to the vagina. That's what we do. Because I get nasty. Yes, and then you're good to go. It's hot. I think it's hot.
No,
I love it.
I'm sure he loves it. I'm sure he absolutely loves that.
Yes, I think he does. So that's what I do. And that's a workaround you can get with. I mean, I clean. You know, so yeah, and then I do that, and then that's a really good way to work around with that. But yeah, speaking of porn being fabricated, yeah, porn is definitely, a lot of it is fake. I'll tell you the most fake thing about porn. No women are moaning and having that many orgasms with no clitoral stimulation at all. And that's just not real, okay? Those women are not having all those orgasms. So that's that, you know what I mean? And that's fine. But porn can still be a great resource for mental stimulation, right? Overdoing porn is risky because it's so stimulating that if you watch porn too frequently, you're gonna need more and more stimulation because it is releasing so much dopamine and it's so much stimulation happening that it can definitely desensitize you for regular sex. But that's if you're watching a ton of porn, and it can be addicting, so you just gotta watch out with it. But porn is a great resource to use sparingly to discover what you like, right? Because even if those plots, and so much of it's fake, especially the women's pleasure is fake, so much of it's fake, but the plots are intriguing, and it's a good way to learn, like, ooh, I do like the taboo of a stepdaughter, or ooh, I like this dominance, or I like this power play dynamic, or other, I mean, gosh, there's so many different themes out there. There are so much different themes out there for your brain to explore kind of what you like. And that doesn't even mean you have to do it with your partner all the time, right? You don't even have to role play or play out all the themes that you discovered you like. You can kind of just have them in the background of your head. Just kind of knowing and grasping a hold of these things that turn you on can be really good for enjoying sex. So porn can be very beneficial in some ways, even though there is a lot of fake stuff. Or if it's too much for you, you can also try audio or erotic novels. I will tell you what kind of porn I watch, and just take that with what you will. So I like to watch amateur porn that's made by real people, because then that's more realistic. The audio, the quality is not as crisp. Everybody doesn't have perfect bodies. It may not be, filmed in HD or whatever, but I do like seeing the real people have sex porn. Yeah. Yes, so, and you can find anything you want online. You can find anything you want, which is pretty cool. I also am very interested in the subtleties. I like a lot of build-up and anticipation. So I like to watch just the tip things, like where somebody is just putting the tip in for a long time and then they have sex. That's really hot to me. I also like to watch videos of people who are overhearing their roommates or their parents or somebody else having sex, which is very interesting. There's not even any visuals in that. It's just the audio. But I think it's very exciting because you're listening in and you can hear the sex sounds and stuff, so that really does it for me. So I like to really just get in there and explore subtleties of things that can be a turn on. And it's good research for me because then I can, incorporate that into my sex life.
Well, is porn too much? You were saying it could be a problem with desensitizing you.
Yes, so porn can definitely be kind of overstimulating. If you use porn to masturbate really, really frequently, it can be desensitizing in your regular sex because it's releasing so much dopamine that then you need to match that stimulation once you're having sex. And that can be detrimental in some ways. But again, that's really only if it's being used in excess.
What's your thoughts about masturbation for females?
Woohoo!
Yay!
Masturbate a lot. Masturbate.
That's how you learn your body.
Learn your body, yes, absolutely. Though there's lots more thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think masturbation is great for both people, all bodies. Masturbation is great for all bodies.
But how do we deal with it when a person might feel uncomfortable with it? It's something that's kind of taboo that a lot of people don't feel comfortable with doing.
Well, I mean, the shame that runs through society, that's its own whole topic. It's so tricky to overcome the shame that it's underlying in so many people. Maybe you were raised religious, told that masturbation is a sin. That's hard to get over. Definitely just starting small. I always instruct people to, if they're not comfortable with masturbation, to begin with just touching your body all over. Touching with your fingertips on every part of your body. Working your way in to the vulva area. Not starting there, but starting on the outside of your body actually. So your breasts, your arms, stomach, legs, just touching all over. And you can take the pressure off, right? You can say, I'm just touching my body. Doesn't have to lead to masturbation. This self-touch exercise is actually wonderful for getting connected with yourself and your body and learning what you like and how you like to be touched. So many parts of your body are sensitive and can be really arousing that aren't even your genitals. So that's a good way to explore those parts. And then you can keep doing that exercise until you feel like you might want to go to the next step. And then you can work your way into touching your vulva area. Start there. Just start with an exploration that doesn't have the pressure of reaching an orgasm, right? You don't have to cross a finish line to masturbate or explore your body. So that's what I would say for somebody who feels kind of uncomfortable. And as you are touching yourself, if you do feel that uncomfortability and the shame, try to breathe into your body and just notice where it is, A lot of my work is around the body. In a normal workshop, I would have done several embodied exercises. Because this is a panel, it's more about talking, which is super fun. But getting into the body is a really helpful tool for navigating these deeper issues. right? So like what you're talking about, the discomfort, the shame that can go with self-touch, it can be really helpful to get into your body when you feel that uncomfortability. Feel it, just breathe through it. The goal is not to get rid of it and say, don't be uncomfortable. The goal is just to sit with it and just notice it.
And be comfortable with masturbating.
Yes,
But
eventually.
can we say too that it's just not for everybody? Like every person may not even like to masturbate, so it's not something you have to do.
No.
But I do think, because I'm just gonna speak freely. I never did. Like I never did. I just thought it was weird. I was like, why am I doing that?
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Mhm.
But I also understood too that I didn't really know what I liked from my partner until I start trying.
Yeah. Yeah. How did that go?
So you learn
My own body.
Your own body. And
That I knew what I wanted.
That's when you
Yeah.
learn what you wanted.
Yeah, because before I was just doing it just to do it, to satisfy my partner. Like I'm a pleaser, so even if I don't have an orgasm, I'm fine. I'm trying to
Yeah.
by you having one.
Yeah,
So I would just do it just because of the act of it. I really wasn't,
Yeah, absolutely.
benefiting as much as my partner was. But it was because I didn't really know what I liked. I didn't know what I needed or my sensitivities or my hot spots. I didn't know what they were.
Absolutely. Was there a shift when you did explore those
Because
things?
then I knew my spots. So then I was able to communicate that with the person, like, that don't work for me.
Right,
That
exactly.
position don't work for me, it ain't, yeah. Touching me right there doesn't do anything, I don't feel nothing. Because sometimes people think their spots are your spots.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like all my neck, it's like, I feel nothing, like, get off my neck.
Get off
like,
my neck. Yeah, it can even feel cringy.
Yeah.
Some people it doesn't
yes,
feel good.
But some people love to be kissed all over their
Yep,
neck. For me,
that's
it's
right.
like, that's weird.
Right.
But I didn't know that until I began to figure myself in my own body.
Absolutely. That's so important. And no, you don't have to masturbate. People can do whatever they want. But it is a good tool for learning what turns you on,
So you can tell your
and then you can tell your partner. And also kind of keeping you in a space where you are alive sexually. I think that it is hard to have your libido nice and juicy if you aren't masturbating or keeping that libido alive. It can become a little bit dormant if you're not exploring your sexuality. We walk around a lot of the time told not to be sexual beings, so we're kind of disconnected from the waist down. And masturbating or connecting with your pelvic area on a regular basis is a good way to stay connected with your sexuality, so that you do have a juicy, alive libido, right? If you don't use it, you lose it. Maybe, for some people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the exact opposite for me and male.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way we have to do it, masturbate, and then doing it too much, it could cause it to ache. It could make it take longer.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we don't do it as much, it's more sensitive and it feels better when we do it. So it's like, and there are many ways to do it in my opinion. For a
Absolutely.
male. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's like polar opposites in a way.
Yeah, well, and then I mean this in like a balanced way, right? Because I think that sometimes, people with penises, it's easier to get more, where you might be doing it more frequently, and there might be more desire, especially for a younger person, where you are just craving it a lot more often. So then yes, if you're masturbating every day, it could definitely cause some desensitization or soreness when it comes to having sex with your partner. I completely agree. I don't even get a chance to masturbate probably once every 2 weeks or so, but I still think that helps keep me kind of in the game. So I mean more like the level of frequency is a very personal thing. Again, just kind of like playing with it like an experiment, right? Like, hey, how is it when I'm just not masturbating at all and I only have sex with my partner? How does that feel? Does it feel amazing? Like I'm just like so sensitive and ready to go with my partner? That might be the case for you. Or it could feel like it's not so very often that I'm kind of disconnected from my sexuality, right? Just depends. Just
It's
depends.
definitely a balance.
It's a balance
Too
for sure.
much,
Yeah.
you feel less, lasts too long, which
All
could be
that.
helpful for the female when
Right.
it takes longer to
Mhm.
come for it.
Yep.
If I wait and don't masturbate and I'm more sensitive, then I'm quick.
Right. That's absolutely a thing.
I think the same for females too. If the female is masturbating too much, then she's desensitized, so that she won't be able to.
Only if you're using the
enjoy
toy.
it.
Only, I think that would be the
Those
case if
toys.
you're using a toy. For a female, a toy might be similar to like porn for a male. But I encourage people to use a toy. I just definitely do not discourage that. I just feel that if I use my toy, you know, every day for a whole week, I'm gonna need more clit stimulation from my partner, you know, to reach an orgasm than I would if I didn't do that.
Yeah.
But when I masturbate, I don't usually use a toy. I usually just take my time. It takes a while, right? So then again, another thing that I have to put this time aside for, so that's why it doesn't happen as often. You know, there's just so many different ways you can do it, and there's no right or wrong answer. It really depends on how it is for each person. But you're so right about the penis. Like, that is so true about the masturbating and becoming more sensitive or less, or lasting longer. People use that as a tool to last longer. You know, like having masturbated and stuff. People do use that as a tool to last longer. So you're right. You're right about all that. Yeah. But I think, yeah, there's ways to work through it. There's ways to get comfortable with it. Figure out what works for you.
What would be, go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead, you think?
So I kind of want to talk about kind of like feeling in the element and feeling yourself, feeling sexy and wanting to actually do those things. Because I feel like sometimes you might not feel like you are worth that, if you get what I'm saying. So I don't have a specific area.
You don't feel
It's
you don't feel
definitely-
sexy enough to give it, you're saying?
Maybe sometimes it's not feeling attractive enough, so you don't have that desire.
So it's the
Yeah.
confidence level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's confidence.
I get that. Like, you're not feeling confident, so you don't really want to put yourself out there because you're not feeling confident. Yeah, I totally understand that, for sure. That is tricky. So what I would say to that is, again, working with yourself, working with your body. Everybody's not going to feel confident at every moment of their life. That's never going to happen, right? Accepting that you're a human being, that you're going to have days where you're not feeling as confident as others, but also doing work on that and trying to explore your confidence and your empowerment. I have a couple exercises I like to do. One of them is affirmations work really well. I know that that's sort of an old trick, but I find that they work really well because even if you don't believe what you're saying, it's still rewiring your brain, which is science, which is super cool, right? You can create new neural pathways in your brain and start to feel differently about yourself, your body, you know, all the different things that maybe you struggle with. So for affirmations, if you employ those, make sure to do it in the present moment. So not something that'll happen in the future, but something that you're manifesting it now. Like, I love my body exactly the way it is. My body is so sexy. Or I feel strong and confident today. You know, something like that where it's in the present moment. And you can customize affirmations to be exactly what you're working on, right? So that's something cool. And then also, I think it's really wonderful to explore your body, and kind of that self-touch exercise can be really positive for getting yourself in the mood and turning yourself on, right? You can get in your body and do a little bit of pre-gaming for sex. If you're not feeling it that much that day, and it's your opportunity, and if you don't want to be like, oh, I'm not feeling it, but it's my opportunity for the week or something, do a little pre-gaming. Try doing some breathing exercises. There's a bunch out there. You can do your affirmations, and then you can actually do some self-touch and some masturbation to start yourself off and kind of turn yourself on. See what turns yourself on about you. And then you can be nice and ready to go when your partner comes over. That's something that I like to do, especially if my partner's going to be at work or something during the day, and then we have time after. This does not happen very often. I wish it would. Sometimes I will start myself off and I will start masturbating and feeling myself, but I won't finish, and then, you know, I'll be all ready to go, and it's kind of like a fun personal foreplay that I do for myself. Yeah. So, but that confidence thing, that's a lifelong journey. It really is. It's just a healing journey that ebbs and flows, and, you know, learning to like really love ourselves the way we are. Well, you can't fix that in one day. I still work on that. So
You have to get your life coach.
I was gonna say, I work with people on that a lot, just like reclaiming the body, doing reclaiming exercises, being in the body. Women's circles, oh my gosh, I have an amazing women's circle coming up on Saturday the 22nd. It's called the Sacred Slut. Getting with other women and doing like powerful work together and, sharing together and chanting and breathing and meditating. That stuff really has been huge for feeling empowered. Been extremely empowering for me. Yeah.
Well, any last questions you guys have?
Yeah, I have no idea what time it is, y'all.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
judged
it's
that.
Yeah, last
Yeah,
question, last question. He's trying to think of a question. Take your time.
Yeah, this was good.
You said you have one?
Yeah, I have one, but I feel like it also kind of just answered.
No,
Oh,
what?
no, you're good. Say it anyways.
It was like, so let's say you might have a taboo fetish of some sort.
Mhm.
But like, you feel like you're kind of odd for having it. It's like, how do you deal with that?
Oh, that's such a good question. You guys have the best questions. So I love this. So this is definitely part. Go ahead.
And the partner doesn't seem on board.
The partner isn't into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not so much.
Right. That is tricky because you can't really get your partner to be into everything, right? If they're not into it, they might not be into it. But I don't think that there is anything, I don't even believe there's anything such as a bad desire or bad fetish. It's all about how you act it out and how you process it as a person. There's some fetishes that are like really, really out there, and if you were trying to act on them in a certain way, it could be damaging to others, right? But those same fetishes, if you are just practicing with a consensual person or yourself, nothing wrong with them. I don't think there's any such thing as a bad fetish or a too taboo fetish. I'm all about it. Explore it. Again, that's a shame thing. Working with the shame that you might feel. If your partner's not super into it or you feel like it's really out there might be some shame from society or from yourself or your partner. Working with that's so important, right? And just kind of being creative in how to explore it. It depends on the fetish, of course, but there's ways that you can play with your partner and kind of incorporate that into your sex that might be more comfortable for them. You might have to compromise. It might not be your full fetish or the peak level of your fetish, but it could be, if you work with your partner and figure out a way, you could come up with a way to have part of the fetish or compromise, so it's just like a dash of it and it's not the whole thing, maybe. And then that could be somewhat satisfying to you and possibly a way to incorporate your partner as well. Again, I would take turns, so I would have a separate session of sex dedicated to exploring your fetish. If you try to incorporate your fetish at the same time as trying to please your partner, that might not work as well. So going into it knowing, okay, this session is about my fetish. And this is a way for me to get these needs met and explore this fetish. Then, your partner isn't going to be trying to get their pleasure, at the same time, because the fetish maybe doesn't do it for them, but they still might be willing to engage with you on your fetish, just knowing that that's not the moment when they're going to be having their pleasure as well. Yeah. And it depends on what it is. Now I'm curious, but I love it. I love to explore fetishes. I think it's so fun to come up with creative ways to incorporate fetishes and get those desires met. Yeah. You can talk to me.